Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to go over 10 huge things that I wish I knew sooner. If you happen to be a veteran player watching this video, be sure to leave the thing you wish you knew sooner in the comments below. A lot of times, some of the best tips come from other veteran players. All right, so the first thing that we're going to go over is going to be dodge rolling. And you might be thinking, I already know that you can dodge roll, but there's some nuances to dodge roll that are really easy for people to overlook. And that is the fact that dodge roll places both a buff on you and a debuff on you when you do it. So you may have noticed when you dodge roll, there's little green lines on your feet. And that's telling you that you've currently got a debuff on you. So when we dodge roll, what's happening there is every time you dodge roll while those lines are on you, those green lines, your dodge roll is going to cost twice as much as the time before. So you'll look at the stamina bar here. We dodge again. It's hardly using any stamina, right? But if we keep going, that last one there used almost half of our bar, just one dodge roll, right? So it's stacking debuff. It adds up to very, very expensive dodge roll. So you don't want to dodge in quick succession. You want to, if you can handle it, you want to wait until the green lines are gone. And then when they're gone, you can dodge again. So you can see the buff here and the debuff. You can see how long it is. You've got the buff immobilize immunity and the debuff dodge fatigue. It's giving you immobilize immunity for a few seconds. So someone can't stun you or something like that while you're dodging. You get a little bit of invulnerability to immobilization. Great for PvE and great for PvP. So the main thing to be aware of there is if you find that you're burning through your stamina every time you go into the battlegrounds or into Cyrodiil because you're dodge rolling away from enemies and your stamina is just gone all of a sudden, that's why it's happening. It's because you're probably dodge rolling too many times back to back. And each time you dodge roll, it's costing more and more stamina. It's not just that little sliver like that first dodge roll right there is. Hardly uses anything. The next thing that a lot of new players and returning players forget or don't realize is that enemies in ESO cannot crit you. Even though there's stats, there's passives you can grab that reduce crit damage, right? There is gear that you can grab that reduces crit damage. There's sets that reduce crit damage. And all of those things are very useful in PvP where players can crit you. But in PvE, the enemies can't crit you. So there's no reason to wear any stat. So if you see impen on a gear, impenetrable, you don't want to wear that if you're primarily a PvE player. The only time you'd ever want that on your gear is when you're going into PvP. And in that case, it's a fantastic stat. It's really, really good. So this is one of the main reasons why we have two different sets of gear in ESO for PvE and PvP. It's because stats like Divines work really good in PvE, but impen works really good in PvP. And so you tend to want to put one or the other on your gear, depending on what you're doing. The next one is a really handy tip for people coming back to the game, creating a new character, or for people that have just never played it before. And that is that you can have two weapons in ESO, as you're probably familiar with at this point. You've got your front bar, as we call it, and then you've got your back bar weapon. And what tends to happen when you create a new character is your front bar weapon is going to level up really fast, and then your back bar is not. It's going to lag way behind. It's probably not going to get hardly any experience at all because your back bar weapon's only going to get experience when it's out. And you hardly ever finish enemies on your back bar. Usually your front bar is where you're killing everything, and your back bar is where you're applying dots and buffs like that. So a nice, easy way to counteract that is you can put a two-hand skill. For instance, in my case, I got dual wield daggers on the front, and I've got a two-hander on the back. So you can just toss a two-hand ability. We go to our weapon line, two-hand, just grab any two-hand ability and put it on the front bar. Not only is this going to level up that ability, even though you're not using it, it's there absorbing experience because you're on that bar when things are dying. It's also going to level up that weapon line so that your back bar is leveling with your front bar. And by doing so, it's going to be unlocking all these passives that are going to increase damage and your sustain. And they're just really, really important to have if you're using that weapon on the front or the back bar. You really want to make sure you get both of your weapons maxed out as soon as possible in terms of their level so that you can max out all the passives as soon as possible because they're very effective in this game. The next thing I see new players and returning players confused about a lot is a big one. But first, now if you're like me, you love exploring massive open worlds. If that's true, you might love Mu Origins 3, where you'll experience an unrestricted open world map that spans sea, land, and air. And it's free, so why not try it out? Download link is in the description. For the first time, this long-loved franchise will surpass the old 2.5D confines of the original series to explore a massive 3D world built in the insanely powerful Unreal Engine. You'll start by creating a character with an in-depth character creator that lets you sculpt every single detail of your character's appearance. Then you'll dive into the game where you'll encounter and get to know lore-rich characters, NPCs, and bosses. You'll embark on adventures across 55 million square meters of open world, including the expansive Miracle Continent, the enigmatic underwater realm of Atlantis, and the stunning Sky City. The journey is dangerous, so you'll have to upgrade your gear with fun and intuitive gear progression systems. And looking good is just as important, so you'll unlock epic cosmetics that ensure your character stands out. Best of all, now is the perfect time to jump in, as Mu Origin 3 has launched its Divine Divine Realm factions and armband system. Join a faction within your alliance, then experience the thrill of large-scale world PvP like never before. The new armband system is now available, providing you with another way to become the fiercest player on the battlefield. Unlock and upgrade your armband to unlock new levels of power. You can do all of this for completely free by downloading the game right now using the link in the description below. So what are you waiting for? It's free and it might be your favorite game to play on the go. Be sure to use my exclusive gift code for in-game rewards to start you off right. Shout out to Origin 3 for sponsoring this segment. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the video. The next thing I see new players and returning players confused about a lot in ESO is going to be poisons. When you should use them, when you shouldn't use them, and what they do, how effective are they, right? And the answer is it's very situational, but here's my advice. As a new player, you're going to find lots of poison on the ground, these cheap ones, right? You're going to find lots of these cheap poisons. The enemies are going to drop them. You're going to pick them up and they're just going to end up collecting in your bag and in your bank. Sell those. They're actually really good money. You can sell them to NPCs and they give you really good money, but these are the worst poisons in the game. And so if it comes down to using these or not, the answer is no. You don't really want to use them because you could put them on your bar right here. You slot the poison. Now your weapons are using your poison, but when you do that, you lose the enchant. You can see there, it says fiery weapon enchantment. And then right below that in light gray text, it says suppressed by equipped poison. So what that's telling you is because you have this poison here, it's not using your fiery weapon enchant. It's not using the enchant on the other weapon either. And if you put it on your back bar, you would overwrite that enchant as well. And these enchants are incredibly powerful in ESO. So you don't want to overwrite your enchants with a crappy poison. And a lot of times you won't even want to overwrite it with a good poison because it's terribly expensive to have poisons up and running at all times. It's only in the sweatiest of content, you know, the very, very hard, very end game content where players are going to do this, or maybe when they're parsing and they really want to get that 1% extra damage on their parse, you know, to inflate that number just a little bit more. Then you could put the double dot poisons, which is what you'd use in the end game. But this stuff, sell to an NPC, forget it exists other than as a form of income for your player, and be aware of the fact that it overwrites enchants, which is a bad thing 99% of the time. While we're talking about weapon enchants, remember that blue line there is telling you the weapon enchant is there, and you have to right click and charge it, and then that's going to fill up the blue line, as you can see there, so that it doesn't run out. If the enchant runs out, if that empties, then the enchant is no longer effective, which is big bad. You don't want that. Another massive mistake that I see new players make all the time is accidentally selling gear that's important to them. So just remember that you can lock gear on your character. You just right click it and click lock. That's going to lock that gear, which means it's not going to show up anytime you're talking to an NPC or a crafting bench, right? So you can't accidentally deconstruct it and you cannot accidentally sell it to an NPC when you're vendoring all your trash, right? So make sure you're taking advantage of the lock function. I love that ESO has it, and I wish so many more games that I play did utilize that. The next quick tip I'm going to go over is just a reminder that anytime you're wondering how you level up a skill line, it tells you by hovering over the skill line. So weapons, it's going to say you just kill things with your weapon out. The more skills you have on your bar from that weapon line, the faster that weapon line is going to level. So if you wanted to level up a two-hand real quick, you'd put 5 two-hand abilities on the bar and kill things, and that would make it so that your two-hander was leveling up as fast as possible. Where this changes, however, is when you come down to guilds, and when you hover over guild, it tells you to level this up, you're going to complete Gold Coast story quests, or perform contracts, or fulfill sacraments to increase your Dark Brotherhood rank, right? So guilds each have their own unique way of leveling, and if you're not sure what it is, just hover over it and it will tell you. And the next tip is, have you ever wished you could level up your crafting lines with a single click? Well, you can with bookshelves. Always, always, always read bookshelves when you're walking by them. When you're reading bookshelves, there's always a chance, right? It's leveling up one of your skill lines. So if you read it and nothing happens, either that bookshelf didn't have a skill line that it could upgrade, or it did, but your skill line was already maxed out, which is often the case. Once your skill lines start hitting 50, you'll read bookshelves and you'll see that they're doing something less and less often, because a lot of times they're trying to give you a level in a line that is already maxed out, and so nothing happens. So we'll read these here, see if we can get lucky. Running through and touching those bookshelves, we got a level to woodworking, and it put our woodworking level up to 47, which is a really high level of woodworking to get a free level of, right? That saves us a lot of time deconstructing items. So it was a really nice level to get just from reading one bookshelf. The next mistake I see new players make is not really knowing where to go next with their quests that they're doing. A lot of times they'll go to one zone, they'll start doing a quest there, and then all of a sudden they find themselves in a completely different zone because they picked up a quest that took them there. And an easy way to prevent this from happening, if you ever lose track of what quests you're doing in your zone, is to know the difference between the 3 main types of quests in this game. So the first main type of quest in this game is going to be the main quest. It's going to be listed under main quests here. In this case, it says go to Soul Shriven in Cold Harbor. And so what we can do is from from this screen, we can just press the map button and the map's going to tell us where we need to go next. It says we need to go to Daggerfall and we need to go to this building there, and that's going to be where we continue the main story quest. Alternatively, once you've completed the main story quest, or maybe you don't feel like doing it again, or maybe you're just not doing it first, right? You're doing something else, maybe a zone story. So the zone story is the second type of main quest, and the way that works is while you're looking at the map of the zone that you're in, you can press open zone guide and it's going to say continue the zone story, or to start the zone story, right? It's going to let you do that, and you can say continue zone story, and it's going to open the map, and then it's going to zoom in on where you need to go next, and it says read the board in Craglorn, right? It's telling us exactly what we need to do next. So we go to this board, and that's the symbol you're going to see for the zone story. So if you see that symbol, this kind of complex looking diamond symbol there, that's the zone story. If you see a black down arrow, then that's going to be a side quest. It's just a side quest. The difference between the side quests and the zone stories are the zone stories are going to give you about 3 skill points per zone. Once you complete the entire zone story, which is going to be quite a few quests, you're going to get 3 skill points as you're progressing your way through it. And then you're also probably going to get some cosmetic rewards and stuff like that, especially at the end of a zone story. When you've completed it, you'll get some achievements and some cosmetic rewards, right? So zone stories are really useful to complete. Side quests are oftentimes going to be much less rewarding. It's going to give you a bit of gold, maybe a green item that you can add to your set collection or something like that. And then finally, you're going to have your blue or teal down arrow quests. These ones right here, these are going to be repeatable quests, or we call them dailies oftentimes in ESO. And these are going to be quests that you can usually do every day. So you'll talk to these side quest NPCs, you'll pick up their dailies, and you can do them every day. The dailies and the DLC zones are going to be great for picking up rewards like motifs and stuff like that, cosmetic rewards. So if you're looking for more cosmetics to improve your drip in ESO, then dailies inside of the DLC zones are a great way to get that. All right, so the next big mistake I always see new players make is they come to the game and they start playing and their gear starts breaking, and then they realize they need repair kits, and they're going to need a lot of them. And so they go to a merchant like this guy right here, or this girl, and they talk to him and then they buy repair kits. And these are going to cost 420 gold a piece. This is asinine. You don't want to be spending that much gold on a repair kit. That is highway robbery, right? So the merchants, the NPC merchants in this game, they rip you off when it comes to repair kits. Never, ever, ever buy repair kits from them. They're charging you about 5 times what you should be paying for them. So instead of buying them from them, you're going to go to any local guild trader. These guys right here, they say guild trader in front of their name. Go to the guild store, search for a grand repair kit, start search, and you can buy them here. Look at these. These are selling for 80 a pop. So there were 420 gold a pop from the NPC merchant. Here, they're only 80 a pop. Highly recommend taking advantage of the guild traders to get your repair kit. It's going to save you loads of gold. Okay, so now let's go over some settings that you should absolutely change from the default. If you haven't done this as a new or returning player, these are the settings in the game that start one way, but you almost certainly want to have them a different way, right? So let's go over those. The first and perhaps the most important one is going to be quick cast ground abilities. You want to turn this on. By default, it's going to be on automatic, and that's awful. Basically, what that's going to do is you have to press the button twice to get an AoE ability to go off, which makes it impossible to have a good rotation in ESO just because of the way ESO damage is kind of a rhythm game. You do light attack, ability, light attack, ability, light attack, ability, which means you're pressing one button for your light attack and one button for your ability. And if you have to press a button twice, now all of a sudden you're doing light attack, ability, right? That's a button press, and then occasionally you're gonna have to do 2 button presses, 2 button press, and it's impossible for you to have a really good rhythm and put out really good damage if you have this set to auto. So this is kind of one of those noob traps in ESO, and the first thing you should do is come in and turn it to on. Now it's always gonna be 1 click per ability. It's gonna be consistent, and you're gonna be able to get into that rhythm and put out that great damage. The next big one is gonna be the opacity of enemy forecasts. So you can come in here and you can see by default it's going to be red, and it's going to be the minimum opacity. So you'll hit this button right there, and where I'm standing at right now with nothing going on, you can see that pretty well. However, there's a lot of terrain that has maybe a reddish hue to it, a little bit of a tint, or maybe there's a lot of abilities going off from you and your teammates, and it's very easy to lose track of this. So one thing you can do and should do is turn that opacity up. Now look how much easier it is. You cannot miss that on the ground, right? And there's some levels, some dungeons where the floor is red because you're in like a lava zone or something like that, right? And so if you change that to fuchsia, if you really want to, now there is not going to be a floor in this game where this color conflicts with it, and you will always see it. And you'll never die because you didn't see a forecast. You'll just die because you saw it and didn't get out of it. So hey, one problem down. Both of those settings are going to be under gameplay in the settings, by the way. In the same settings menu, double tap to dodge. This is one where it's pretty convenient at first when you're a new player there. But as you get into more and more complicated content where the game has you going and standing on a ledge in a dungeon while you're fighting an enemy and you've got to move into a position at some point, right? And you're trying to inch up to it with double tap to dodge, you're going to be trying to inch and you're going to roll right off instead and kill yourself. And, you know, probably wipe your group in the process. So better to go ahead and get used to a proper key binding for that now. So you're going to go into gameplay, go into settings, and you're going to turn double tap to dodge off. Get that off. That way you're never accidentally dodge rolling and inevitably killing you and your group in the process. So turn that off and then bind it to a button that you can press with your right hand preferentially. That way your left hand can be telling your character where it's moving and the right one can say, hey, I'm going to go this way, right? So something on your mouse. I use mouse wheel up with dodge roll and ESO. And it just works out really good. It's real easy to get out of the damage that I'm standing in at the moment. In the same settings menu, auto loot. This one is amazing. It feels so much better to consolidate the loot and then auto loot it. So there's actually two settings here I would absolutely turn on. Consolidate loot. If there's 5 enemies on the ground, you loot one of them and you get all of the loot instead of having to loot each of the 5 trash mobs independently, collect their 10 gold, you know, their 1 gold off of each one independently. You don't want to do that. Make sure you turn consolidate area loot on so that you're looting all of them with one click, and then turn on auto loot, which is going to make it so that when you click on the corpse, it's going to pull all the loot into your character's screen, as opposed to having to sit there and say, yes, I want the gold, and yes, I want the crafting material, and yes, I want this, right? While your team's sprinting off to the next pack of mobs and you're falling behind. So if you're ever in a dungeon and you feel like you're falling behind, there's a good chance this might be part of why. It's because you're not auto looting, whereas they are. Then once the dungeon's over, you can go ahead and filter through all the loot you just got and, you know, sell it to a merchant for extra gold. The next really useful one is going to be under camera. In here, you can change the field of view. Make sure if you're playing in third person, you're changing the field of view for the third person settings, not the first person. Almost nobody plays in first person in ESO, especially in group content, because it just doesn't really work. All of the forecasts are underneath your feet. And so if you can't see your feet, you can't tell if you're inside of an AoE damage or not. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come into here and change your third person field of view. By default, it's right here, and then you can max it out to here so that you can see a little bit more. You can see those AoE forecasts coming in from the side, you know, or the enemy attacks coming in from the side, just a little bit easier. It's nice to have that extra field of view here in this game. It really is. Now, speaking of having extra awareness of what's going on around you, it's also really nice to change the settings under the combat menu and change your ability bar to always show, especially when you're a new player. It can be kind of frustrating when the ability bar is randomly disappearing as you're running around, and then you go to start the next fight and you can't remember what button was bound to that one ability you wanted to start this fight off with, or the next ability, or maybe where your heal was, right? And so just change this to always show, and that way your ability bar stops hiding on you. Similarly, your attribute bars, you're running up to an enemy and you can't remember if your health was full or half full, or if your stamina was almost out, right? And you're just like not sure where it is and it makes you feel a bit uneasy. Just go ahead and turn attribute bars to always show, and this way you can always see your skill bar at the bottom as well as your attribute bars. The next setting that you should absolutely change in here is, by default, I believe that nameplates are off in ESO, so you run around. It's very immersive, right? Nobody's got a name over their head. However, when you're looking for a specific merchant, or when you're looking for the stable master so that you can upgrade your mount every day, it can waste a bit of time talking to each individual NPC, trying to figure out who's who. So what you can do is you can come into your settings, go to nameplates right there, and then turn that on. Now, look at this guy right over his head. It says stable master. So I can just run up to the stable master, talk to him, and get my mount speed upgrade for the day. I don't have to guess who's who in this game. And lastly, if you haven't yet, you're going to at some point accidentally attack a civilian in town, and then the guards are going to come after you and they're going to want to either kill you or take your money. And that can be kind of annoying sometimes, especially when that's not what you intended to do. So this setting right here, prevent attacking innocents, you can turn this on until you're doing something where you need to intentionally attack, you know, innocents, like when you're doing Dark Brotherhood quests or something like that. So you can just turn this on, and then that way you can't accidentally attack people in town and you won't find yourself getting, you know, in trouble with the guards. Now, the next big mistake I see new players make in Elder Scrolls Online is not realizing that you can respec in this game for, well, literally free. And you can also respec even easier for almost free, right? So it's very easy to respec in ESO. It's a very fluid game. You'll never have to come to the store and spend real life money on crowns to get the attribute respec scroll or the skill respec scroll. They are here, but this is widely considered by veterans of the community to be a noob trap. This isn't something you would ever need to spend money on in the game because it's a trivial amount of gold to do these things in game. Instead, what you would do is you come here and you teleport to Grotwood. This is a great place to come anytime you need to respec, because the respec shrines are right next to the shrine that you land in when you teleport to the city. So from the shrine that you land in, you're just going to run here like 20 steps, right? And boom, here we go. Here's the respec shrine, 3,200 gold to respec respec. Alternatively, in the cash shop, you could have paid real life money. 3,200 gold is less than you'll make in a single dungeon run, right? And right next to it, right here, we have another respec shrine. This is where you could do your skills. You could respec your morphs, which is usually all you ever have to do. In this case, 900 gold for my character. It goes up. The more skill points you have, the more this cost increases. So the one thing to know is that it's always going to be a trivial amount of gold for you and for your character. Now, some of you might be watching me say this and say, but Lucky, you can respec for free using your armory, which is true, which is what we're going to talk about next. So if you want to, another thing you can do is take advantage of the armory, which is in the cash shop. So you come to the cash shop right here, the crown store, and you type armory, right? And then you go down to furniture, and right there, armory station. You're going to grab this and you're going to claim it. And then you're going to go to your house. This game has houses all over it that you can get for free. They're little tiny 1-bedroom apartments that you can get for free, right? But you can go to that. So I'm going to go to my house real quick. Mine is not a 1-bedroom apartment. It's an island with a volcano on it because I'm a degenerate. Also because being a stream team member had its perks, you know? So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to my armory that I've already placed, right? And in here, you can save a empty loadout. So you can create a loadout where you have none of your skill points spec'd in, none of your passives are spec'd in, right? It's just a blank slate. And you can come and you can equip that loadout with all of your skill points freed up, all of your champion points freed up, you know, no curses, whatever you want. You can save that in here, and anytime you want, you can come and unspec all your points for free. This is free making this change. So this is a way to do it. The only downside of doing it this way is that to do that, now you're going to have to go in and respec all your points. Instead of just changing like 2 that you needed to change, you have to put in all of them all over again, which when that's a trivial amount of gold anyway, doing it this way at a certain point will probably become a waste of your time because it's going to take more time than the gold is worth to you. But when you're a new player and you don't have a lot of gold, you know, saving your gold this way can be incredibly helpful. All right, next we're going to quickly talk about light attacking, light attack weaving, what it does, why it's important, because these are terms you're going to hear as a new or returning player a lot, and you're going to wonder, why is light attack weaving so important and why do so many people hate it? It must be so hard to do because I just can't wrap my brain around it. So let's go over the quick explanation and you'll never be confused again. So light attacking is, you know, just light attacking. Light attack weaving is using one light attack between your abilities. So you light attack ability, light attack ability. That's light attack weaving. That's all it is. It's very, very simple. It's not hard to do, and it's not something that you're going to struggle with once your muscle memory kicks in. You just have to remember to do it, right? You just have to remember to press the light attack between the abilities. Really, really easy to do. And the reason that it's really important to light attack is, let's go ahead and use my ultimate here. So we've used my ultimate. Now on my ultimate in the bottom right there, it's counting down from 8, 7, 6, right? And below that it says 3. I have 3 ult charge. So if I hit this enemy with my ability, the ult charge is not going up, right? Your abilities will not generate ult, and your ult is really, really important in ESO, as in almost every other game, right? It's going to be what contributes a massive amount of your damage. So when we light attack though, that 3 starts going up for 9 seconds. It goes up 3 per ticks, right? So it's going to give us 27 ult charge, which should put us at 30 ult charge when it stops. And there we are, we're at 30 ult charge. So that is why you have to light attack in ESO. That's probably the single biggest reason. Now, on top of that, there's a lot of sets in ESO that proc off of light attacks, right? Like Relicans. If you're wearing Relicans, you need to be light attacking. Otherwise, you should be wearing something else. And there's also weapon enchants. Those proc off light attacks. And then there's just the damage that light attacking itself does, right? All of these things are going to contribute a massive amount of damage. So you're going to want to light attack in between your abilities. That's called light attack weaving. And then once you're in the habit of doing that, you can engage in something called animation canceling, which is just pressing the ability that you're going to press after your light attack. You press it in a heartbeat rhythm. So it's buttum, right? Butt dump, right? Butt dump. And doing it in that rhythm is going to cancel the animation of the light attack. See that long animation? That right there? You're not going to see that. Instead, you're going to see this, buttum, right? It cancels the light attack animation. So basically you're doing one ability every second and you're cramming a light attack in there. So you're getting credit for both a light attack and an ability at the same time. And that's it. That's all light attack weaving is. Now you know as much as this best light attack weaver in ESO. It's a really simple concept. That's animation canceling. There's nothing complicated about it. Don't be afraid of it. It's real easy to do. You're just pressing the ability right after you press the light attack and your animation canceling like an expert. Don't let it scare you. Don't let it ruin your experience. It's really quite simple. It's just a little mechanic that the game has. Now, light attack weaving is important, but I would say the single most important thing to increasing your damage in Elder Scrolls Online, if you're just playing the game and you're constantly feeling like your damage is underperforming, it's not where it needs to be, the biggest problem for new players is always dot maintenance. It's keeping up all your dots. So typically your bars are going to be basically, you're going to have one spammable, and then you're going to have 9 other abilities that are either dots or buffs, right? And keeping those up at all times, keeping those ticking is what's going to contribute to your damage more than anything else. And that's the easiest thing to fail at, and the hardest thing to get good at is just making sure to remember to reapply the dot, right? So there it is, it's ticking, it's got 7 seconds, 6, right? 5, 4, and it's gonna tick down to 0. And as soon as it hits 0, I wanna make sure that I'm reapplying that ability again, right? And that's gonna be the case with all of my AoEs, all of my buffs, all of them, right? As soon as they hit 0, I wanna reapply them. Not before, because then I'm gonna be overspending my resources and I'm gonna run dry before the battle's over. But not after, because then that's seconds where that ability is doing 0 damage. It's doing 0 damage per second when it could have been doing, you know, more than 0 damage per second. So the biggest key to getting good damage in ESO is making sure to keep up all of your dots all the time. The only time you're using your spammable is when all your dots are ticking and all your buffs are ticking. Granted, there's going to be slight alterations to this when you're fighting weak trash mobs where you don't have time to do a full rotation, right? By the time you got all the dots down, they'd be dead, right? So in that case, you might throw 1 dot down as you're running up to it and then use your spammable to kill them in 1 or 2 hits and then just keep moving on, right? But anytime you're fighting a boss, get your dots down and then use your spammable anytime all your dots are ticking. And if one of the dots falls off or one of the buffs falls off, stop using your spammable, cast that dot, and then go back to using your spammable. Easy peasy. Now, ESO is pretty infamous for its cash shop. It's got a lot of things in the cash shop, but it is worth knowing that there are a ton of cosmetics that you can earn by playing the game. You've got cosmetics in every DLC zone, right? By doing the dailies in those zones. So if you ever want to increase your drip, you can do it that way. You can unlock skins by playing the game, just by visiting the zones or by playing through dungeons and earning achievements. There's mounts that you can earn by playing the game. For instance, in the Necrom expansion, you complete the story in that expansion and do all the achievements there. It's really achievable and you can get a nice little Dayglow mount that way. So there is a ton of stuff to do. If you're ever curious about skins or personalities that you can unlock by playing the game as opposed to by purchasing them, I've got videos on that on my channel. I'll go ahead and link those in the description below so that you can get to them easier, as well as some other really useful guides for new and returning players. I'll go ahead and link those in the video description as well. So after you finish this video, you can go ahead and browse those and see if there's something that looks like it's going to be helpful for you. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys learned something from this video, and I've got tons more, so be sure to check out the links in the description or the videos popping up on screen right now. Massive shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thanks so much for supporting the channel in the big way you do. If you want to become a member, click the join button below. I'll see you in the next video.